government, CNBC TV 18 learns, may not be done with helping out sugarcane farmers in the industry. Sources say the GST Council will also take up the issue when it meets next. On the agenda, we learn, is a sugar cess of up to 5%. Sapna Das is here now with more details. Sapna, a sugar cess, is that what's coming?
Absolutely. What we understand is that it's definitely there on the GST Council's agenda meeting for 4th of May. And as is being rightly pointed out, up to 5% is the proposal for a sugar cess levy. Well, we understand that this proposal has definitely come in from the Consumer Affairs and Food Ministry. It was a twofold proposal, basically, for subsidy, which has already been, that decision has been taken by the cabinet as is. And plus, apart from that, but 19,000 crores is the overall area figure that has come out. So in order to take care of that, sugar cess proposal is what is going ahead. But couple of points here which are very important to understand. If you look at all the GST laws right now, CGST, SGST, IGST and the composition cess law, well, there's actually no provision for a separate kind of a thing like a sugar cess. Even if you want to put it under the compensation cess law, the cess can be levied, but the problem is that the money will go to the compensation cess fund. It'll get accumulated there. So how will it be apportioned to states? And mind you, that has been created basically to compensate states for losses arising out of GST revenues. Here we are talking about a very specific sugar cess to take care of the 19,000 crore farmer dues, which is basically a point of contention as of now. Plus, also let's keep in mind, cess is not shared with states. Also, the fact remains that when GST had rolled out, the understanding was that all those 22 to 23 odd cesses had been subsumed under GST. So the question now is that if this proposal actually goes forward, we need to understand what the state views are on this, particularly the non-BJP states. Will they play ball on this front? Yes or no? Second, of course, even if it does go forward, probably an amendment to the law will be required, at least in terms of creation of a fund, where if the cess is levied, then that will get, for example, earlier also there was a sugar development fund. So some kind of a fund will have to be created so that the monies from there can actually go to the farmer dues for payment of the same. Otherwise, it will be difficult to understand, to operate. The last but not the least point, at what point in the sugar chain will the cess be levied? And how will it be recovered, in the sense that there's going to be an inflationary impact? So not a very easy decision. Surprising that it has come to the GST Council, but officials are very clear that any taxation matters regarding indirect taxes, apart from the fact that if it's a BCD decision, a basic customs duty, which is outside the GST ambit, it has to come to the council. So let's wait and watch and see what happens. This is going to be an important, interesting development.
It is going to be an interesting development that could be taken up by the GST Council when it meets on the 4th of May. Joining us now to discuss these possibilities, MS Money, GST partner Deloitte, and Pratik Jain, leader of Indirect Tax at PwC. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us. Money, let me start by asking you what you made there of Sapna's news break, the possibility of a sugar cess, the government trying to fund the areas of almost 20,000 crores to farmers by this route. What do you make of it?
I think the most important point to bear in mind is we have had a cess in the past which was 124 rupees per quintal. It wasn't on a percentage basis. It was a fixed rate which was per quintal, which used to be levied. There also used to be an excise duty of 71 per quintal. Now, when GST started at that point of time, there were something like 24 cesses which got abolished, including the sugar cess, including the jute cess, cotton cess, many other cesses. And I recollect at that point of time, there was even a press release where the government declared its intention to abolish most of the cesses over a period of time so that we could be cess-free. Now, if directionally we are going back to the days of cesses and we start with a sugar cess to cover up a deficit, this sets a precedent for many other cesses to follow, then the whole purpose of the press release that we saw in June 2017 to a large extent gets vitiated. And this gives opening room to many other businesses, many other sectors to get back by saying that the best way to fund a deficit in a particular sector or to fund the expenditure in a particular sector is to levy a cess. So I would say to a large extent, the tax policy has been a victim of successive governments adopting this route. And unfortunately, now we said it seemed to be headed in that same route all over again.
Well, as we pointed out, that this is not confirmed whether it will finally go through. We are given to understand that this is certainly being discussed as a possibility and might be deliberated upon by the GST Council in its meeting on the 4th. Pratik, how real is this possibility today? I know that you have always believed that, there will be wriggle room that the government will exercise when it comes to cesses. You've never felt confident about the fact that it will remain at the basket, which has already been identified and declared. What do you make of this?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm being proved right on this. I mean, I never wanted to. But, right from the beginning, because they retained the power to impose cesses, and we kept saying that that's not a good idea. And apart from the issue that that Mani highlighted, a couple of other points, cess, of course, will impact the consumer prices because it will not be available as a credit and to industry. And also, for direct sale of sugar to the consumer like you and me, there will be an additional incidence. It will also mean that some part of the benefit that consumers got by reduction of price after GST, because the rates on, let's say, chocolates and many others, got reduced substantially. Now the industry would be constrained to increase the prices as well. And also, if sugar cess is imposed, what happens to auto cess, for example? What happens to other cesses which were there earlier? And also, when the states could start demanding the power to impose cesses as well, which they had earlier. So
which they are, with some, yeah,
and it's never a good idea. I mean, all cesses and surcharges were supposed to be subsumed. They did right thing, and also a new act will have to come, because that act which Sugar Cess Act was also abolished when GST came in. So they'll have to introduce a new act which will have to be approved by the Parliament. I hope that they don't do it. I mean, if GST collections have shown improvement, if they want really have more money, they should garner the money from some other sources, not from
Pratik, I think they've gone. While we may have touched that 1 lakh crore rupee mark on the GST collection, the government is very clear that this should not be seen as a trend just yet. They're hoping that it will continue in this direction, but they've been cautious to point out that this should not be considered as a trend just yet.
No, I agree. I mean, it should not be considered as a trend, although I believe that April number should could also exceed 1 lakh crore. But that besides, even if it's not a trend, the better idea if they have to have more revenue is to increase the GST rate itself. So make it from 5% to 10% if you like. Of course, 50% of that will go to the states and all of those things will happen. But introducing a new tax or a levy like a tax, which was never supposed to be part of GST. And also, I mean, 10 months down the road, I mean, what kind of signal are we sending to the international community? I mean, it's one step sort of ahead and two steps backward. So I think there has to be a larger debate on this. I don't think it's a good idea, and it's not the right time.
Not a good idea, not the right time. Once again, I'm caveating this for the benefit of our viewers. This is source-based information. No decision has been taken so far. We are given to understand that this is an option that is being considered by the government in order to try and meet that deficit when it comes to the sugarcane areas. Because remember, while the cabinet has cleared the subsidy, it's a minuscule amount, 1,400 crores versus the ask of almost 20,000 crores. So this is a proposal, though decision has been taken just yet. MS Mani, Pratik Jain, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Time for a break.